Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. On today's video, I'm going to try to run this, a SCSI hard drive, on something like this, which is a modern laptop. It's going to be using something that is plugged into the USB port, and let's see if this thing can actually work. So without further ado, let's get right to it. So when it comes to retro computers and using old devices like this hard drive or this zip drive here, if they used an IDE interface, it would be easy to plug that into a modern computer because IDE to USB adapters have existed for a long time. And we even have things like this, which is a USB floppy drive, which would allow you to read 3.5-inch discs on a modern PC without any trouble. But for whatever reason, the ease of connecting old devices to computers has never seemingly extended to SCSI devices. One of the reasons for that is that the SCSI interface or SCSI interface was mainly only used on the Amiga and the Macintosh line of computers and never really made its penetration into the desktop home PC market. So it's probably a result of this lack of penetration, which has resulted in a lack of options for connecting this stuff to a modern computer. That brings me to this. This is a Microtech XpressSCSI or USB to SCSI intelligent cable. Now looking at the date down here in the corner, this came out in 1999, and there's probably a number of my viewers who have actually used devices like this or maybe even own a device like this. But me myself, I've never even seen one of these in person. I've only heard about these existing. Well, as you can tell, this thing is shrink wrapped, and a local viewer here in town ended up with this and passed it over to me to take a look at. Setup is as easy as plugging your devices into this cable here and connecting it to your computer. Now it does talk about loading drivers from a CD, which would obviously be inside this box. That means that this may not work whatsoever on a modern computer, but I'm certainly going to try. This was made by the company Microtech, and there's their address, and I'm pretty sure this is a very defunct company. But they made a whole slew of external SCSI devices and most likely USB devices after SCSI sort of went the way of the dodo, at least for desktop computers. There it is. Preserve your investment in SCSI peripherals. Connect up to 7 storage devices to your iMac G3 blue and white or USB-equipped PC. All right, so enough talking. Let's open this thing up. This is getting unboxed for the first time in its life, 24 years later. So there it is, there's the device. Luckily the cable and everything is not too sticky. And we do have some documentation. We have the IBM 340 meg or 170 meg micro drive, so basically a compact flash card with a tiny little hard drive inside. Regular 64 meg up to 64 meg compact flash cards. We have smart media. If anyone had digital cameras back in the day, you might remember smart media. It was about that big and had those gold contacts on it. It was very thin, and that slid into cameras up to 32 megabytes in capacity. For Microtech customers only, special upgrades. Wow! You could win a free digital camera. See back for details. We have the IXLA digital camera suite, only $20. Web Easy. It's probably about making web pages or whatever with clip art included. That's $30 US. And IXLA Explorer, which is a browser maybe? Royalty-free photos. But just check out this 90s Netscape goodness running on a MacOS 8 or 9 here. Those days are long gone. Win all 5. You have to register, and then you have a chance to win an iMac. They're giving away 1 of each color. So keep buying Microtech, log in, and start building your collection. So they're implying that you could possibly win all 5 of these if you just keep buying Microtech stuff and registering it. Like, the odds of that are basically next to nothing. That's absolutely ridiculous to make such a claim. Nothing much to see here, just a normal registration card. You even need to put your own stamp on it. How lame. Okay, so next up there's the driver CD. We have a little bit of manual here, which I assume is pretty much what it said on the side of the box, that is. Connect it up, install the driver, plug it into the side of your iMac. It's very focused on that. And for the PC here, does it even say you need the driver software? It does. It says When it finds the new hardware found, insert the CD, and hopefully that works. All right, so this is the SCSI adapter, or USB to SCSI adapter. Now, plenty of times I've ended up with these types of things from this time era when they started making these clear cables, for instance, and the plastic or the PVC that's on the jacket of the cable becomes all sticky and nasty. Strangely enough, this one is completely fine. There's no stickiness at all. Although maybe this discoloration, like this green coloring, is actually some oxidation, but it seems fine otherwise. And this is the Microtech USB to SCSI adapter. Definitely see some electronics in there. 24 megahertz crystal oscillator there. Serial number 11137. Now I have to wonder, why were devices like this only briefly on the market? Why weren't these more prevalent? And like, why can't we still buy stuff like this today? Is that just because everyone thinks that no one wants to read SCSI devices? Now I do have to admit, it's been a little bit of time since I have last searched for any such devices, modern recreations that is. So maybe something exists out there now, and if that's the case, definitely please let me know in the comment section. But last time I looked, all I could see was similar devices to this on eBay, and they're all relatively expensive, and of course, I don't even know if any of these things even work, so that's what we're about to find out. So for the hard drive here, termination resistors are installed, so you need to have termination on the end of your SCSI chain. This is a ribbon cable. It goes to a Centronics 50 pin, and then this is the 25 pin connection that would plug into a Macintosh. Now it's a male connector here for the hard drive cable, and then a female connector on this adapter. So we just connect that up like so. Of course, we need to power the hard drive up, so I'm just going to use one of these things, which are little switch mode power supplies that are designed for running hard drives externally. So on the power cord for this power supply, there is a little switch to power on the hard drive. There it is. This Connor hard drive is spinning up, no problems. I'd already tested this to make sure that it does work. And right here on the bench, this is a USB extension cord that plugs into the back of my bench PC. I keep this here just for convenience, so I'm not constantly reaching up. And let's plug this in. All right, so I've gone into computer management, and here is the USB mass storage device that's definitely just showed up for what this is. Device cannot start. The requested operation was unsuccessful. So I've gone under details and looked under device instance path, and here we're going to see the vendor ID and the product ID for this particular device, and that can allow you to sometimes find the appropriate drivers for it. So let's just do a quick Google search. So typically if you're looking for one of these drivers, you just type in both like this. That can usually work. So here it is. SCSI DB25 SCSI Bridge by Shuttle. Now, unfortunately here, this page says no drivers exist, and be warned that these are some shady sites, a lot of these places that this stuff brings you to. So sometimes it involves looking around a little bit to see if you can find a more modern driver. I don't think that's actually what we're looking for, nope. All right, here's one, patch, newer technology, SCSI to USB converter. Okay, so this talks about newer technology, which was another manufacturer of devices like this. And it says that, like other similar products, it was a Shuttle technology OEM device. And check this out, here's a list of the various devices that are all actually based on the same thing, and there it is, the Microtech DB25 device that I'm trying to use now. There obviously was an HD50 version at some point, plus a Belkin, and then the Shuttle one, which is the actual manufacturer of this. So maybe these drivers exist somewhere and I can just modify them to then work with the Microtech one. But let me search for the Shuttle one here. And maybe I can find drivers that actually work here. Nope, no drivers there. You know what, before I do too much searching on Google, let's try looking at the CD. Maybe there's something on here that's actually useful for Windows 10. Maybe there's something here that can actually point us in the direction of a driver that get this thing working. Take a look at the files on here. There's the Microtech INF file, but there is the Shuttle USB.sys. That would imply that this is definitely a Shuttle OEM. So I'm going to Google for this file. Let's see if we can find this. Maybe there's a newer version. So after some more Googling, I found that Castlewood also sold a SCSI to USB adapter, and I'm pretty sure it's basically going to be the same thing as one of these. So I did some looking around for drivers for this, maybe thinking I could find a newer one, and certainly I did find something. Well, opening the INF file, take a look. It's the eUSCSI, which I'm pretty sure is exactly the same as this thing. And it looks like here it says 2000. So it's possible that this driver is actually gonna work. There was actually a Win98 folder here, and these are the older files for Windows 98. So why don't we just give this thing a try right here. Now there's actually a setup program here, but I am not gonna run that. First of all, I'm gonna right click on this and I'm gonna hit install. Aha, no digital signature. So the version of Windows I'm running here is the 64-bit version, and it enforces driver signatures. So it'll refuse to install any drivers that aren't signed. Now before you comment down below, I know it's technically possible to disable driver signing on Windows 10. I'm not gonna do that on this bench PC. I use this thing too much to have potentially unstable or bad drivers running on it. So I'm just gonna keep it the way it is. So I think what I'm gonna try doing is I'm busting out my old netbook here. Let's see if the battery still has charge. Look at that, it has charge. Boot this thing up. This has Windows XP on it here. And let's see if this thing works with those drivers on Windows XP, because to be honest, I'd be happy with that because I can use this machine to copy files on and off SCSI devices or image them, for instance, and then just use a thumb drive to copy the files off this onto a modern computer or actually connect over the network to my retro Samba share. So let's just connect this up without even attempting any kind of drivers on this thing. Let's see how this goes. And immediately we have the mass storage device with no driver. I have the drivers copied onto this USB thumb drive here. Yeah, it's got no case, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. I'm gonna say install from a specific location. It's all very similar to how it was on Windows 10. Not much has actually changed. It did install, but it has a same error 10. Device could not start. I'm gonna power off this hard drive. And we're gonna unplug this. Now it's possible when I unplug the power here on it that some phantom power was getting to this over the termination from the drive, like term power. Let's see what happens if we plug this back in. It doesn't even show up at all on the computer. Let's hit the power for the drive. Oh, and then it detected it. So it does get power from the drive. Oh, look, there it is, USB drive. Oh, the drivers are installed. Wait a second, is this working? No. Okay, so I'm not seeing any kind of drives here, but I don't think this hard drive is formatted for the PC. So let's go to Device Manager. And unfortunately, nothing is showing up. The only thing that's on here is this USB stick, which if I remove, there is nothing here. Oh, I was a little quick on the draw. I think if I just wait a second, it would have said here that the device cannot start. Now, just in case this is a problem with this drive, let's try this SCSI drive here, Amiga OS 204. And when this shows up, right away I notice that it says no drivers are installed. Wait, look, it worked, it's working. It said Fujitsu hard drive was installed just now. Fujitsu USB hard drive. Wow. So back under disk management, there it is. 500 megabyte hard drive is showing up. Now I don't want to erase this because it is Amiga OS on here, but I could easily run Win32 disk image, and I should be able to image this drive onto the computer. Apologies earlier for trying to record the screen on this tiny laptop. I could just plug the VGA output into my capture device, and yeah, now you have a really nice clear image. Now I was looking for a utility that was compatible with Windows XP that could rip this hard drive into a file. There are plenty of utilities that can take a file and write it to a drive, but I wanted to be able to back up drives like this onto the machine. I tried using Rufus, which of course has a Windows XP version, but this utility can really only write to the disks. It can't read from them. As I mentioned earlier, the perennial Win32 disk imager just doesn't work on Windows XP, and I did some Googling, and sure enough, the authors of that program said that Windows 7 is the bare minimum for compatibility. I have this NetBSD floppy drive creation utility tool, and this can probably write to the disk. There it is, Fujitsu. But certainly it can't read from it. Then I found out that the person who maintains this website has a version of DD for Windows. And when you go to downloads and you look at the versions that are available, well, there's DD release 64. That's not gonna work, that's 2017 64-bit. But look at these older versions. All right, so there's the syntax, and I am copying BS is 512K. The input file is the actual block disk, and then the output file is the file on your hard drive. -- progress shows the progress. And now we wait. Unfortunately, this adapter is USB 1.1, so that's pretty slow. I can't remember what the maximum bandwidth of that is, 12 megabits or something like that, so it's gonna take a while to copy this. Luckily, most SCSI devices that you would be potentially connecting to this are relatively small, so that's not that much of an issue. All right, well, I finished copying the hard drive, and notice the error here. Drive cannot find the sector requested. I'm assuming that is like a read error of some kind, but there it is, Amiga drive, 519 megabytes or whatever that translates to, 507. Let's send that over to the thumb drive. Okay, so the image file is copied over onto this thumb drive. Now I was curious on this hard drive what SCSI ID it is. And I think it's set for ID 0 because I think these are the ID jumpers and there are no jumpers installed. When we look at this long string here for the Fujitsu drive, it has a 0 at the end. Let's just see if anything changes here if I change the drive ID on this hard drive. And I just popped a jumper. These jumpers are a little too big for this jumper block onto ID 0. Let's turn this back on. I guess the reason for that delay before when we were seeing that driver error was because it's probably scanning the SCSI bus from that adapter. And when it determines it can't find a drive that's working, that's when it probably gives that error. Oh no, look, it didn't work this time. Wait, could that be the jumper I just put on the drive here? Let's unplug everything and turn it all off. Take this jumper off. Turn the drive back on, which should power up this adapter through the termination power. Let this finish spinning up. And now let's reconnect this. Maybe that was the difference between this Connor drive is it wasn't set to SCSI ID 0. I'm not sure if these are the SCSI ID jumpers. Look at that. It did. It showed up again. I'm going to make an assumption that right here are the SCSI IDs. So let's pull that off. And now let's try out this Connor drive with this adapter. Maybe it'll work. This drive is so much quieter, but I think it should be set to ID 0 now. Let's plug this in. I'm just waiting for this to finish seeking. Okay, I think it's booted up. Look at that, Connor, it works. So the instructions for this thing were like, it's so easy, just plug in and work. But it seems like your devices need to be set for ID 0. Maybe I missed that. Maybe that was there and I just didn't see it. Well, if we go over to Disk Manager now, this Connor drive hooked up. Oops, that's Device Manager, Disk Management. Okay, we're not gonna initialize. We're just gonna hit next. Okay, yeah, there it is. 1 gigabyte. I guess that's what this is. All right, well, let me power this off and let's see if I can load that image into WinUAE and actually boot it to confirm that it actually read the drive properly. All right, here's WinUAE, and I'm pretty terrible at using this. It always takes me a little while to figure this out. So add hard file, let's try that. And there's amiga.img. Of course, the geometry shows us 506 megabytes. I guess we're just gonna see if this works. We put in DH0. I'm just gonna make a guess there for that. And let's hit OK. And why don't we hit start? Well, look at that. It freaking worked. It's amazing. How cool is that? And that's right, this was the hard drive I was using on the Amiga 2000, Amiga OS 204, for testing the bridge board, because that's what this PC mono is here. Well, that is cool. You know what, I just had a thought. The testing I was doing on Windows 10 when I initially plugged this adapter in was with this hard drive set to one of the other IDs. What if I plug this in now, set to ID 0, which I know works? It's really unlikely this is actually gonna work. What? Wait, what? It does just work? I just did all that on Windows XP for no reason? Because it's actually working. It just freaking worked. Wow. All right, what I'm gonna do for the ultimate in test here, let's plug this Amiga 500 meg drive back in and let's run UAE again and point it directly to this drive over USB and see how that works. And now if we go to disks, add disk, we pick the Fujitsu disk, there it is, add drive, and we hit start. There it is, it's freaking working. It is booting the Amiga directly off this hard drive through this SCSI adapter on Windows 10, latest patch version, 64-bit. It just freaking works. And again, just to show that this is working without any special trickery or drivers, if we go to details, here it is right here. That is the actual device. And there under driver, you see it's just using the very standard Microsoft Windows USB storage driver. In fact, it's using some Windows 10 version there. I can't believe this just works. I can't believe this would have worked from the very beginning if I had just had the hard drive set to 0. I'm still very confused about that. Okay, so we know these two hard drives are working when they're set to ID 0. Let's move those out of the way. Let's grab a zip drive. This is a SCSI zip drive. It's actually an Apple one, but just wanted to test that removable media does work. So termination should be on, and that is that jumper closest to the connector here. And we're also going to have to set the SCSI address to 0. Now it looks like 1 through 6 are the only possible options, but that is surely not the case. We just take off both jumpers, and that should become ID 0. And while I'm at it, I'm going to take this jumper and I'm going to put it on there on the first one to enable termination. Plug this ribbon cable in, just like we did with the hard drives. Plug power in. Okay, it needs an adapter because the zip drives use the little Berg small connector like a floppy drive. And I turn on the power to it. Okay, the disk is on, but you know what is not on is the adapter. So I think the problem is here is that the zip drive is not providing termination power. And this thing, even though I have it plugged into a USB 3 port actually, it does not get enough power from USB. It really needs the termination power to work. So that is certainly one of the caveats with this. Now let's try something else I think should provide termination power. How about a SyQuest 88 megabyte drive? And this is in an external case, so of course it's got the 50-pin Centronics connectors and a selector for the ID, so I can set it to 0. Okay, we got this thing, it's got a light here, so that's powered up. Let's wait for it to scan the bus, and hopefully the SyQuest drive shows up. Oh, look at that, SyQuest USB device. I'm pretty sure this is a working device. Let's grab one of these cartridges that a few of my viewers sent in and nicely donated to me. Let's see if we stick this in here like that. There it goes, spinning up. All right, so the LED on here is blinking and now we have a green light. And if we go to disk management, see what we see. Windows should support this, even Windows 10 or Windows 11 theoretically. So let's format this. We're gonna just format it as FAT. We'll name it SyQuest FAT. We'll do a quick format. Yes, it's fine, erase it. Nothing's on this anyways. It's doing stuff, lots of activity. Oh no, format did not complete successfully. Well, I've been fiddling around trying to clean the disk, create new partitions, and it refuses no matter what disks I try in it. So either the drive is not working anymore, the disks are all bad, or it's incompatible with this adapter. And it could be any one of those. I'll have to plug this into a Macintosh because I know I was testing on the Mac and it was working there. So I'm gonna grab another SCSI drive to test. Let's get this out of there. All right, so the SyQuest drive doesn't seem to be working, so how about this? It's a Jaz drive from Iomega, 1 gigabyte per disk. So it's very similar to the SyQuest, just later, newer, so higher capacity. Oop, there we go. There it is, Iomega 1 gigabyte USB. That's the Jaz, and the zip drive is internal to my computer. It's a 250 megabytes, and it's over ATAPI or IDE. So no simple volume, 1 gigabyte. We're gonna assign a drive letter K. Sure, we'll do NTFS. I mean, this is just a test. Call it test. The reason why I'm doing this is I want to see how quickly I can copy files across this USB 1.1 link to this external Jaz drive. And there we are, test is formatted. We have 1 gigabyte, and there it is. The K drive is visible. Here are some OBS captures. Let's take this one that's 258 megs, and let's copy this over. And this should at least give us the speed it's going. Ooh, that's slow. Although, I mean, it's not terrible. It could be a lot worse. Most of the devices you're connecting to that thing, like old hard drives and stuff, are slow anyways. They're probably not as slow as it's going here, which maybe is an average of 600K per second or so. It's better than it not working at all. And we saw with UAE, it was actually booting the Amiga directly off the original SCSI drive, and it booted pretty quickly. So even though we're bound by the slow throughput of this adapter, it's still pretty good. Windows has finally given me an estimate 5 minutes to finish copying this file. It's already copied 23% of it. And this is all considering that the Dell workstation here I'm using for my lab PC doesn't have any more slots in here, so I can't even put a SCSI card in here. Okay, file is successfully copied on here. Took a while, but the estimate was correct, and yeah, it worked. All right, so I've shown that this adapter works great on Windows 10 when you have the devices set to ID 0, of course, and it works on Windows XP, but I had to fudge on that driver. But how does it work on a Macintosh? This is a MacBook Air M1, so, you know, latest generation or whatever of Macintoshes. I'm gonna need to grab a USB adapter because, you know, dongle life when you're using a Macintosh. I'll be right back. Oh, I'm back, and I basically spent 10 minutes looking for my dongles. I have 2 of them. I couldn't find either. So I have this, which is a USB-C to HDMI USB 3.0 hub thingamajiggy. This will actually charge the computer while it's at it, so we'll try using this. All right, so the computer is charging, so let's plug in this into one of these ports. And of course on a Mac, there's no like inserted sound or anything like that. So is it seeing this drive? I don't know. So let's just put this disk in. Maybe it will mysteriously just show up. I think the Mac can read NTFS partitions, which is how I formatted this thing. And I was about to say I was going to look for the drive, but look, it just popped up right on the desktop. There it is. That's the file I just copied over from the PC. And if I double click on it, it should load it. It's there it is. It's the video capture that I made. So like, it actually works. It totally works. So Windows 10, thumbs up. macOS, I think Monterey or whatever the latest version is, thumbs up. That totally works. Why don't we go for, how about this Google Pixel phone here? Let's see if this works. All right, for testing Android, I'm going to use the same hub thing here I used on the Mac. This is my Google Pixel. It's running the latest version of Android 12 or whatever the current patch is. Let's plug that in. We'll plug this disk in here. And I've opened up the Google Files program here, and I'm not really familiar with removable storage on this version of Android. But if I go to other storage, yeah, other storage doesn't really show anything that's helpful. Just as a control, let's plug in this little thumb drive. I'll plug this into the hub. All right, and it just says USB is now available. Wait, plugging in the thumb drive. Now it says eUSCSI DB25. Okay, so even though the name of this is the SCSI adapter, this is actually what's on the thumb drive. So that is not what's actually on the Jaz drive here. So that's a strange glitch that it was showing this as the USB to SCSI, even though it was like just a naming problem. So I gotta say, I'm really impressed with this thing. I can't believe it just works on Windows 10 and on the latest version of macOS. It may work on Windows 11, although I didn't test that, so your mileage may vary. And I don't have a Linux laptop handy, so I couldn't easily test that. But as you saw, it didn't work properly, at least on Google Pixel version of Android. Maybe it works on Samsung devices. I'll be getting a Samsung device soon, actually, so I can give it a test on there. As far as iOS, I have no way to actually even attempt to connect this thing to iOS, so it may or may not work. The fact that it works on the Mac means maybe it works on iOS, although, like I said, I have no way to even hook it up, so I don't know. Now, the biggest problem is the availability of these things. It's really hard to find them, and I think when they do pop up on eBay, they're very expensive. And for me, I didn't ever want to risk buying one of them because I just had no idea if it would work on modern computers, and sure enough, it does. So rest assured, if it's this one at least, it will work. As far as those other OEM versions from that company, what was it, Shuttle? I can't say. But it would be absolutely amazing if the community could step up and make an open source version of this, like perhaps one of those blue pill SCSI emulators or the Raspberry Pi based ones that instead of making an emulator for a drive for say a Macintosh or an Amiga to see it as a hard drive, how about the other way around? Emulate the host adapter so that it can control the drive and you can archive your stuff. Even if it was just a Raspberry Pi solution where you could take a drive and image it into a file and then copy it onto your main computer for running in an emulator, I think that would be hugely useful. So it'd be really great to see something like that because it really sucks that these are so unavailable and so hard to find. So if you found this video interesting, that these things exist and they actually still work, thumbs up would be really appreciated, and a subscribe and all the YouTube stuff, and check out my Patreon. I really want to thank my patrons. Their names are scrolling up the side of the screen. Comments down below, you know, all the usual stuff. And I guess that's going to be it. So stay healthy, stay safe. I will see you next time. Bye.